Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Please hit subscribe if you are new. Do you know what? I wanted to wait a minute after the final action in this fight before I started to record this video. At the time of recording, the signs re Lucas Browne are positive. He's up on his side. He seems to have regained consciousness. He seemed to be on oxygen. So I wanted to hit record. When I started this channel in 2013, the second video that I recorded was a post-fight reaction to Mike Perez versus Magomed Abdusalamov. Now, long-time heavyweight boxing fans will know that that fight ended in tragic circumstances, and it so happened that I went and recorded long extended thoughts on that fight without realising that one of the fighters had ended in a very, very, very bad condition. And I sincerely hope that that is not the case with Lucas Browne. Lucas Browne is a good guy, a likeable character. Thankfully, as I've just pressed record on this, it doesn't look like he's still unconscious. It looks like he's regained his consciousness, and obviously that's a very, very positive sign. But this was an extremely one-sided fight, and it ended in a chilling knockout. Let's start by saying, in the pre-fight build-up here, when I was doing my previews, I talked about the risk factors to Lucas Browne. I talked about his age, being 38. I talked about his inactivity, having not had a notable fight since Ruslan Chagayev 2 years ago. I talked about his weight, and I talked about the fact that he may not be the same fighter now he is presumably acting without the influence of performance-enhancing drugs. So 4 distinct risk factors. And I speculated that with all 4 of those risk factors potentially being against Lucas Browne, it was very, very unlikely that we would see the same Lucas Browne that we saw against Ruslan Chagayev in the ring tonight about Dillian Whyte. Previously on this channel, and I'm talking 3 years ago now, we talked about Lucas Browne as a glorified bouncer. That's how we talked about him as a boxer. And I did state in the pre-fight build-up, for me, Lucas Browne is a fighter whose performances vary substantially dependent on the weight and dependent on the condition he comes into the ring. Certain fighters, they can be 5 pounds heavier, they can be 10 pounds heavier, and they can put in a similar performance. Lucas Browne, he's one of these guys, his career best performance when he comes in light. If he continues to come in heavy into the 18 stones, etc., we see slow, plodding, ponderous, low output performances. And this is what we saw tonight. Unfortunately, it's not just athleticism that's affected by Lucas Browne's weight. It also, in a way, is the way he actually approaches the game. Because when he's light, he can throw a jab, he can move, he can box. When he's heavy, his punches are so slow, his movement is so laboured, that unfortunately, even his technique appears to be damaged by him coming in so heavy. I think, having watched this fight, it's fair to say that the Ruslan Chagayev version of Lucas Browne is no more. And, that's a fighter who we're probably not going to see in the ring again. This was a horrible, it's sad. I'm 3.5 minutes into this video, and I haven't even mentioned Dillian Whyte. We'll come on to Dillian Whyte in a minute. This was one of the worst defensive performances you're ever likely to see from any fighter. Lucas Browne, painfully slow, standing there, flat-footed, chin straight up in the air, no head movement, hands down by his waist, slow as hell, no guard, no head movement, eating punches. No wonder his face was a bloody mess after 3 or 4 rounds. A horrific defensive performance. And he bumped into the best Dillian Whyte that I have ever seen tonight. Now, Dillian Whyte looked good in there. Whether that was because Browne looked so bad, or whether that was because Dillian Whyte was genuinely, a vastly improved fighter, is up for debate. But Lucas Browne, with his frailties and with his poor performance and with his ponderous, heavy sluggishness, succeeded in making Dillian Whyte the high output fighter, which we highlighted pre-fight, but also made Dillian Whyte look fast, made Dillian Whyte look powerful. Even technically, Dillian was timing Lucas. Dillian was able to read Lucas's slow jabs and counter over the top of them. Even in terms of his combinations, Even in terms of his combinations, he made Dillian Whyte look like a smart, sharp boxer in there. You saw Dillian Whyte throwing 2-3 punch combinations, changing levels, going to the body, then up to the head, fast hands. Lucas Browne made Dillian Whyte look really, really good in there tonight. Dillian Whyte won every single round by a wide margin, by the way. Won every single round and did a real number on Lucas Browne tonight. This is by far the best version of Dillian Whyte I've ever seen. Now, it's easy to tear strips off this performance based on how poor Lucas Browne is. And I'm not going to tell you anything other than that. For me, Dillian Whyte, he's not in that elite heavyweight mix. He's not a Wilder. He's not a Joshua. He's not a Fury. But if you talk about that elite level of heavyweights, he's second tier. And based on this performance tonight, he's top of the second tier. What we had in there tonight was an 18-stone guy who can punch, who's durable, who's got decent speed, decent output, decent timing, decent countering, decent combinations. Solid performance from Dillian Whyte. And as bad as Lucas Browne was, Dillian Whyte was good. Dillian Whyte won every round through output. He was timing Lucas Browne very nicely. He was doing this thing where Lucas Browne would throw a jab, Dillian would read it, go back, and then time over the top with the right hand, clock Lucas Browne clean. Fair play to Dillian Whyte. He came out in the 6th round. He could tell his man was very tired. He could tell his man had little left. He put combinations together, flurried on Lucas Browne, set his feet through hard, fast punches, clipped Lucas Browne with the right hand, and put him on the canvas. Fair play. In terms of the stoppage, Dillian Whyte does deserve credit. For me, Lucas Browne was so fatigued, so drained, so tired, that probably did play a large part in the stoppage. I'm not suddenly going to say Dillian Whyte is a mega puncher overnight. We've seen that Dillian Whyte is a guy with respectable power, above average power. But for me, having seen the Chisora fight, having seen the Dave Allen fight, having seen the Ian Lewison fight, having seen the Hellenius fight, let's not pretend that Dillian Whyte is some Deontay Wilder puncher after this. As for Lucas Browne, it was all the talk in this build-up about his power. The honest answer is he didn't have any power. This version of Lucas Browne, this heavy, old version of Lucas Browne, was so slow, so poor technically, that even if one of those looping, slow, long punches had landed, I doubt it would have had too much effect on Dillian Whyte. Lucas Browne, he's obviously a big guy. He's obviously a naturally heavy-handed guy. But his punches had so little snap, so little speed, so little technique behind him that I sincerely doubt, even if they had caught Dillian Whyte clean, they would have had the effect. There was very little in the way of game plan from Lucas Browne. 2 or 3 times you saw him change from orthodox to southpaw. You wonder what on earth was the point in that. Maybe too much time sparring Tyson Fury, but all of these orthodox to southpaw trying to be stylish, what was that all about? At no point in the fight did he have any defensive game plan, any jab, any offensive game plan. He was just a walking heavy bag, getting clipped left, right and centre. In hindsight, Lucas Browne would have been better off going out there and fighting like a maniac for the first round, throwing every punch he could throw for 3 minutes and trying to take Dillian Whyte out in 1 round, because that was the only chance he had in this fight. By round 3, he looked laboured, he looked tired, and you could tell this fight was only going in one direction. Browne had heart, he had durability, he took some good punches in there, but fundamentally, either too old, either too heavy, either too inactive, too many punches were landing, he was too gassed, and before you know it, he was on the canvas, and Dillian Whyte has scored a devastating stoppage, which has actually left me quite uncomfortable watching it. When we look back at Lucas Browne's career, we're going to have to say it was a slight waste of career. Lucas Browne spent his whole career by 1 fight coming in overweight. When he fought that Chigayev fight, we saw the potential. We saw what he could bring to the table. We saw how good Lucas Browne could be. Obviously, that fight marred with performance-enhancing drug controversies, but nevertheless, we saw that a light Lucas Browne was a guy who could box, a guy who was durable, a guy with power. Too many fights, he's come in far too heavy, and unfortunately the big fights in his career have come too late, and this is what his career is going to be remembered for, unfortunately. Can he come again? I don't think he can. He'll be 39, he'll be inactive, he'll be coming off a loss. I think Lucas Browne's best days are behind him, and I think it's a waste of a career, unfortunately. Maybe if he'd started a bit earlier, if he had a bit more discipline, he could have really made a lot more waves in the sport than he had. But unfortunately, so many of these careers, go this way in boxing. He didn't even give himself the chance to land a big punch tonight. Luke, when we look back on his performance, unfortunately, it is going to be remembered as a Lucas Browne horror show. I sincerely hope Browne recovers, gets back to his feet, walks out of the ring, and suffers no ill effects from this fight. Dillian Whyte does deserve credit. This is the biggest win of his career. This is the best he's looked. And based on this performance, he can give people a good fight. He can give the big baby Millers of this world, the Kubrat Pulevs of this world, those sort of guys. He can give them a very, very, very good fight based on what we saw tonight. I haven't seen Dillian Whyte time punches like this, counter like this, throw with snap speed like that. Even his combos looked a bit sharper. So I don't want to take away from Dillian Whyte. He deserves a lot of credit for tonight. But it was a combination of Dillian being good, Lucas being bad, and that's kind of where it's ended up. Dillian Whyte goes on. Big stoppage win. Who knows? Lots to talk about Deontay Wilder next. I'd be much more enthused for that fight after this performance than I was in the lead up. Let me put it to you that way. As is always the way on this channel, extended next day thoughts will be coming tomorrow. We'll be talking more about this fight tomorrow. We'll be talking about Frank Buglioni losing his belt, Callum Johnson. We'll be talking about Lewis Ritson. We'll be talking about the Derek Chisora versus David Haye and Joe the Chihuahua Joyce beef. We'll probably also spend some time talking about the Canelo suspension. So if you want to catch all of that out, please do hit subscribe. Extended next day thoughts video will be coming Sunday morning. Other than that, I hope you've enjoyed this initial reaction to Lucas Browne, Dillian Whyte. My fingers genuinely crossed for Lucas Browne. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please leave your comments in the section below. Please do subscribe. As ever, thanks very much for tuning into my channel.